everybody, to your weekly edition of the Not Your Average Investor Show. Today, we got a doozy for you. We are talking about the need to build wealth outside the system. Who is investing now and why? We have a guest here that has a YouTube channel called the Millennial Wealth Creator. He has become a recurring character in the comments here. I'm not going to say his name just yet, but I am your host, Pablo Gonzalez. With me today is not Greg Cohen, but we do have
been replaced.
Been replaced. But you know, let's see. Well, it might be an upgrade. You never know.
Might put him out of a job for a little while.
You never know. You never know. I'm sure he's watching right now.
No hard feelings, Greg.
No hard feelings, Greg. This is, the interesting about Matt Teuschel is not just the fact that I have butchered his name 1,000 times.
Yep. Except for that one time just now.
Except for that one time.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. It is the fact that he has gone from a JWB intern in 2010 to a whole roller coaster of life experiences to now a successful entrepreneur with a marketing company called Leads for Locals. He is also a bona fide content creator with a big time YouTube channel. Is the Leads for Local YouTube channel the one that you got like 12,000 subscribers?
Correct.
Is it called Leads for Locals?
Leads for Locals.
Leads for Locals YouTube channel. And now he's got a new YouTube channel called the Millennial Wealth Creator, where he is evangelizing the need to build wealth outside of the system, something that we very much subscribe to here at the Not Your Average Investor Show. Recently, we ran into him at a speaking engagement here at Jack's RIA, and he just comes up to Greg. He's like, "Hey, man, you remember me? I'm your intern." Greg's like, "Of course, I remember you." And now he's here on the show. Matt Teuschel, welcome, man.
What's up, man? I really appreciate the opportunity. Like I said outside, I'm honored and humbled. And it was really cool. I got the email from Jack's RIA about updates like on the current Jacksonville real estate market. And I saw Greg's picture, and I'm like, I know that guy. Holy crap. And it's being hosted by JWB. And I was one of the original interns. I can't remember what year it was, like 2010, maybe something like that. Way before the podcast. And we're, like, you guys have an amazing location here. It's just awesome. And I went to that event. I went up to Greg, not expecting him to remember me at all because it's probably been 12, 13, 14 years. And he knew exactly who I was. And it hit me like, I mean, Greg is just awesome, man. He is the quintessential example of a true leader. Yeah. And I really felt that from him when I reconnected, and we were reminiscent on the old, like when it first started, and people in the office, how we did the book presentation, all that. And it was just awesome, dude. Yeah. So, and it's just crazy to be here now, see how far you guys have come and how much you've grown. It's awesome.
There you go, Greg.
I appreciate the opportunity.
I know you're going to listen to this, buddy, but I couldn't agree with you more. Quintessential leader, one of the greatest role models and friends I've ever had in my life.
Absolutely.
But before we dive into Greg, we have a little tradition on the show. You know what it's called?
I think it's you're not going to rap. It's the role play.
It's the role call. The role play. We'll role play. You get to be the host. I will be Matt Teuschel.
I got to turn professional.
It's the roll call.
I got to turn professional mode back on.
It's the roll call. We got Joanna.
Roll call.
Yeah.
I was thinking about because you used to do a rap.
I
right?
do.
You used to do a rap on the show. Yeah.
Yes. R.I.P. rap. All right. We got Joanna greeting everybody. She's a community manager. We got the ringmaster, Drew Barnhill, in the house saying good day to all. We've got our leadoff hitter batting second today, John Henning. Good to have you. We got the MVP. You know who the MVP of the community is? Lee Bishop, man. Come on, get with it. Lee Bishop checking in. We got Chris Lee from Fernandina Beach. Chris, I was just up in Dina taking some surf pics. I really loved it. We got the Maven from the mountains of Denver, Leslie Wilson. We got the mystery man, Danny Davis. Hello from Kuwait. Hello, Danny. We appreciate your service over there. We got the mountain man, Billy Green, saying good morning from the ominously crepuscular mountains of Colorado. I thought you had a challenge for me, Billy. We got our regulars, Gary and Rosalind Riley from Marietta, California. We regard you. We got Roger Foncé from Le Inland Empire. He's a esteemed Frenchman.
All right.
We got Fritz Brown. Fritz, my portfolio manager. Fritz, good to have you as always. We got the Shaw man, Nadeem Shah, with a good morning, good afternoon from the Pacific Northwest. Who else we got in here? Energy. Oh, we got Chris Gonzaga from the illustrious Hudson Valley of New York.
Nice.
We got the first family of the Not Your Average Investor Show, Patriarch and Matriarch, Ken and Carolyn Moline. We salute you, Molines. We got T. Castor in the house. T, good to have you back. Keith Eden Villegas. Keith, good to have you. I think that's a new name, Keith. welcome to the show. Like,
welcome, man.
Make yourself comfortable.
Glad to have you.
Yeah, normally I have a different co-host, but this guy's pretty good looking and pretty smart. So
I'm trying a big seat to fill, but I'm going to do my best.
You got it. Big shoes, but you got it, man. Shibu Joseph saying good afternoon, Shibu. Good to have you. HSTN, who is always here and always contributing. Good to have you, HS. And I see Not Your Average Guest checking in. Howdy from New Jersey. I guess we do have a Greg. Greg Stone is in the house. Greg, good to have you. Yep. Miss Rack Welldo from Northern Virginia. I think that's another new name. Welcome to the community, Miss Rack. Hope you make yourself comfortable. Make a friend. Everybody in the chat will answer any questions wholeheartedly, no bias. Everybody in there is either a client or somebody that knows a client or just like part of the ecosystem. So feel free to strike up a conversation there in the chat. But for right now, I'm going to strike up a conversation with my new friend, Matt Teuschel.
Very good, man.
Where does that name come from?
I think it's German.
German.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody in my family that's German.
Okay.
That's just what I've been told. So
Nine.
that's what I stick with.
Got it. All right, Matt. Let's start off hot and heavy, man.
So,
building wealth outside of the system, very much in line with the show, right? Like we are the Not Your Average Investor community. We understand that retirement is like broken. You look at the statistics, it sucks. What is your take on it? What is money? What is building wealth outside the system? What's the system?
So for me, the system would be the common conventional financial planning wisdom that is often shoved down our throats. It's this kind of one size fits all approach to building wealth and retirement and all that stuff. You know, I'm not even really a fan of the word retirement, but it's this conventional approach to how to accomplish those things. And one of the biggest problems I have with it is when you look at the actual numbers, the results of conventional financial planning, it doesn't look good, and it doesn't work out for a lot of people, and it ends up being in the best interest a lot of the times for Wall Street, government, financial planners, et cetera. Not that there's anything wrong with having a financial planner, but the common wisdom of go to school, get the job, max out your 401k, you'll be a millionaire by the time you're 65, and then you live your golden years. I've never bought into that.
Yeah.
And as I've gone down the rabbit hole, which led me to starting Millennial Wealth Creator, and I'm just looking at the results. Like, you know, the other day I was going back through some numbers that I frequently bring up on my channel. The average 401k balance, this was according to Vanguard, okay, and Fidelity. The average 401k balance at 65 years old is only $279,000, right? And then, you know, I hear financial entertainers, you know, I'm not going to name any specific names, all right, but
do I qualify as a financial entertainer?
No, you're really good. All right. JWB is got it down. Okay. Not your average investor.
I didn't know if
we're outside of the system.
I didn't know if I qualify for the financial part. I know I'm an entertainer, but continue.
But like you know, you'll probably get an idea of who I'm talking about later on in the show. But you know, this thing about buy term and invest the difference, and you know, 12% average mutual funds and all this stuff, and you know, it just, when you look at the actual results, it's not working out for a lot of people. Some people it does, and not saying buy term and invest the difference is bad necessarily, but I don't think people are doing enough research as to what is the best approach to build wealth to accomplish their own financial goals, right? Whatever that is, right? If it ends up being what conventional financial wisdom tells us to do, great. But if there was a better way, a much more efficient way to reach our financial goals, why on earth would we not at least explore that? Right. And you just look at how many people are forced out of retirement. How many people can't afford groceries right now? Right. I can't imagine being a family of 4 or 5 right now. You know, grocery bills have like doubled, quintupled, depending on, you know, where you're living at, gas prices. Like, people are really struggling right now. And I think it's because we haven't been given a really good framework for actually building wealth in our lives. And as somebody that learned this the hard way, right, I say that with a lot of confidence because I reflect on, you know, my journey as an entrepreneur, where I've gotten to now. You know, I'm going to be buying a property from JWB here very soon. And it's just like, it's very surreal. And I reflect back on that journey. What did I do different from what I was originally taught that got me to this point? And that's when it started to click. I was like, okay, I got to start sharing this stuff, because a lot of the times we're putting the cart before the horse with this conventional financial wisdom and planning. And it's just not working for people.
Man, you said a lot there, and I agreed with 100% of it. Right?
Glad we're on the same page.
Yeah, totally. This is why we had you on. It was clear that we hopped on a call earlier last week, and like it was like, oh, we're kindred spirits, right? Like totally believe in the similar things. A couple things to add a little context to. Don't love the statistics, but I appreciate the clarity on that statistic. We talk about that too, right? Like the average person in retirement age, the median person in retirement age has something like $300,000 net worth. Right. So it would make sense that their 401k is only like 260K, right. Whatever. The average is actually much lower, right? Because the average gets, pulled down by the low end and stuff like that. Something that we learned on the big thing that pops out to my mind is like the world has changed so much.
Oh yeah.
Right. In the last 25 years, the world has changed so much. And the way that the conventional wisdom around saving hasn't really changed a lot. And yet all these financial instruments, all these different things and everything has changed. I'll start with a couple, right? Like we learned from Kelly Barenbaum that 401ks weren't even a thing before like the early 90s kind of thing, right? Like there was a massive shift from like companies saving up for you and then paying you when you retire, pensions, to like shifting the onus on you, which sounded good because it was like, oh, now you have options, but it really didn't give you options. It just told you can only do this because that's the only thing that they support. Then work culture has completely changed. The idea that somebody works at a company for 30 years is like, nobody.
Unheard of.
Right? Like nobody's doing that because of Wall Street and the financial pressures. And then on top of that, right? Like this idea of like, we're going to save so we can spend. And hopefully that lasts us our last like 15 years because that was a life expectancy. Right. Just man, life expectancy is much longer. The market is much wilder because things are interconnected. Yep. So like this idea of like save to spend later versus just like growing cash, a growing cash flow portfolio that continues to give you better options over time, as opposed to like all of a sudden there's a moment in time where you have no options. Yep. I mean, just it's right there, right? That to 100%. Me is the system, right?
100%, man. We're thinking about all the wrong things when it comes to wealth building and retirement planning. And the goal is to build up this massive pile of money. And then hopefully that pile of money will last you however many years. See, there's this thing called longevity risk. Nobody knows how long we're going to live. Hopefully we live as long as possible, right? Yeah. But people are living a lot longer. So here's the other thing. Is that coveted $1 million portfolio even going to be enough? So $1 million sounds like a lot of money on paper, and it is. But if you can only spend 3-4% of that every single year, I mean, is that going to be enough? Not to mention, well, I mean, like I said, grocery prices are really high. Inflation is out of control. Yeah. So depending on your age, you might need $2 million to live the same exact lifestyle that you are right now. Yeah. So is contributing a few $100 a month into a 401k really going to do that? I would say no. And actually don't even take my word for it. Do the research, look at the numbers, right? It's not a viable plan anymore for the world that we live in. And here's the other thing, Pablo. I don't think it speaks to the greatness inside of us either. That kind of bothers me about because we put so much faith into a financial product. The financial product is going to solve my financial problems. It's going to build my wealth, as opposed to investing back into ourselves. How can I learn more skills? How can I provide more value to the world, right? How can I share my journey that is going to impact so many lives? Because oftentimes that leads to a significant increase in income and cash flow. You said it perfect. We should be focusing on building cash flow, not this big pile of money that hopefully is going to last us the rest of our lives when we retire. Yeah. And oftentimes it's not anywhere near enough money by the time people get to retirement. Yeah. And it just shows because of how many people. I was listening to a podcast yesterday about how many people are still paying off their homes when they get to retirement. What the heck, man? Yeah. Like, again, that's why I started the channel, because there is a very, very efficient way to pay off your mortgage very quickly without making extra payments. All you change is one, mindset. Yep. All right. Two, where does your money go and how do you pay your bills? Yep. Right. If you start to change those, like just minor shifts, again, and this is all outside of the system, because, and the reason I stress that is because the system doesn't make a lot of money when we start to do these types of things outside the system. They can't extract as much wealth from us anymore when we implement these types of things, it gives us back control of our money and our finances in our lives. We're not so dependent on the system anymore.
Man,
Sorry, I get a little fired up.
No, I like it, man.
Because I hate seeing people struggle, man. I hate it, dude. It really breaks my heart.
That speaking to the greatness within us really strikes a chord with me. And I wanna speak to the greatness within you and like getting to your journey, right? Like I know that you have a system that we're gonna like detail out. We're gonna talk about how rental properties fits into the system and all that stuff.
Yep.
I'd love to hear your story a little bit, because when I hear about the greatness within us and where we are to where we are now, it seems like we've always been told, let us take care of you. Right. Like the pension was, let me take care of this for you.
The nanny state.
The 401k is like, just put it in here and we'll take care of it for you. And it feels like to me, that's where that whole like piece of like where they benefit from the equation for us. But my lived experience has been, I had to have a real serious moment in my life where I was just telling you about it, right? I just had to have a real serious moment where I had to think to myself and think, nobody's going to do this thing for you. And that was about like 2.5 years ago. And since that switch turned on, my life has really changed.
Right.
So I'd love to just kind of hear from you on like how that turned on for you and you figured out this, like you got to this like system of what's working for you.
Sure, man. Yeah. It's been a hell of a journey. So just to give some backgrounds on where all this came from. So I lived in Las Vegas for about 7 years. And again, following kind of conventional financial wisdom, I screwed my life up really bad. It was one bad decision after another. It wasn't like gambling or stuff like that. I actually, Vegas was great, but I couldn't make anything work. Right. And I slowly just drove my life into the ground. I ended up losing my house, which I probably should have never bought. But again, like society told me that's what I needed to do. Yep. I heard it from so many people, get the 30-year mortgage and all that stuff. You're a homeowner at 21. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that was actually a really stupid decision. I was not ready for that at all. All right. So I lost everything, ended up losing the house, tens of $1,000 credit card debt. And I moved back to Jacksonville. I moved back in with my mom, didn't have a car, had nothing, pretty much felt like the biggest loser.
How old were you at this point?
30.
30, yeah. I did that at 29 also.
Not a good age to do that, to be in that spot, right? It's demoralizing.
Yeah.
But I just, the thing that I had going for me was I never quit, right? So I started my marketing agency probably 7 years ago now, I think, give or take. It hasn't been until like the last 3 or 4 years where it's really taken off. But when I moved back to Jacksonville, I just kept at it. I was sharing my journey, just having fun with this marketing stuff, generating leads for businesses, playing around with all the different software. And I had started a YouTube channel, just sharing my journey. And it started to click for me, the concept of adding value to the world. Stop going for the easy money. Stop thinking so short term, right? Because it didn't work for me anyways. Not saying it can't work for some people.
It was in my early 30s that I realized that the key to life was adding value.
Absolutely.
For sure.
When I'm telling you, Pablo, when I had that shift and I wasn't thinking about any particular financial product to make me wealthy, right? And to set me up for life. As soon as I had that shift, everything started to change. Not overnight, but that's when my life really started to go in the right direction. When I was focusing on skilling up, adding value to the marketplace, learning something that benefits other people, serving my fellow man, right? That's when everything started to change. The YouTube channel started to take off. I had my best years in 2022 and 2023. So not that long ago, like we're talking like a few years ago, but that's how fast things can change when you focus on the right stuff. When you focus on actually providing value to people, increasing income, right? Yeah, that's kind of, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. That's step one of the blueprints, right? But you said it earlier, focusing on cash flow now. Like, why am I worried about cash flow 30? Like, I'm stockpiling money for cash flow 30 years from now. I want cash flow now, right? Because when you start increasing your income, you have so much more freedom. But you also you can approach building wealth from a position of strength, not weakness. Not where I'm trying to skimp and save and I've got to be on a very strict, tight budget. No, screw that, dude. Increase the income so that we have a lot of options when it comes to building wealth. We don't need to follow what's put in front of us told by society what we need to do, right? We can start to explore a much better way of doing it. And I'm telling you, starting the YouTube channel, focusing on providing value, focusing on the income, that's what changed my life. When I left the mainstream society bullcrap behind, that's when it really started to change for me.
Got it. So moved back home, left, you changed your environment, right? Like that part of it really hits me as well, because I think from day one, the vision for this show, it wasn't a show, it was a community, as I've told you, right? Like we wanted to create the environment where someone could think outside of the system. It's strategically why we called it the Not Your Average Investor Show.
So I love that name.
As I was telling you.
So perfect, man.
Because what I have found is, personally, every time prior to this one that I try to go down the real estate path, everybody comes out of the woodwork talking about why you shouldn't do it.
Sure.
Right? Like there's all these people with all these stories and blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
And the gravity of not being surrounded by people that get it is huge, right? So that's just in the investment side. I assume that Las Vegas was kind of like that for you. You didn't have people to like kind of like center you or like give you that like cognitive bias of like, oh, no, this is the path. So you weren't succeeding.
Not even close.
Come back home, change your mindset, focus on adding value, start your marketing agency, start your YouTube channel, and now you are a financial entertainer.
That's gotta be careful with it, right? But you know, I think about that. It's why I started Millennial Wealth Creator, because I can't help but think, like when I was reflecting on the journey, had I had the formula that I have now, the blueprint, if I wouldn't have screwed my life up so bad, right? If there was a proven blueprint for building wealth, and everybody's a little bit different on what they do in order to accomplish that, but I think having a strategic blueprint in place that you can follow, that's proven. I didn't have that, and not making excuses. You know, I made my own decisions and stuff, but I often wonder if things would have been a little bit different if I had a better environment. If I had a better, mentors and just the right group of people in my life, which, I didn't have bad people in my life, but they were definitely not on the path of building wealth or anything, right? Or having a proven process. And that does make such a huge difference, man. Environments can make or break you. And I learned that the hard way.
100%, man, 100%. All right, so what's the blueprint that you discovered? Talk us through it.
So this is just me.
The Millennial Wealth Creator Blueprint.
That's it. That's what I'm calling it right now.
Working title.
It's working title. It's a work in progress right now. Here's the thing. I just want to preface this by saying, I'm not a financial guru. I don't have any fancy degrees or anything. I'm just a guy sharing his journey.
Your lived experience.
That's it, man. What has worked for me. And I've just been reflecting on that journey for like the past year.
You're in your mid-early 30s.
36.
36. Oh, so mid-30s. Straight up mid-30s. So mid-30s. This is what's worked for you so far.
What's worked for me, allowed me to recover from the mistakes that I made very quickly.
Cool.
All right. So step number one, we've already been talking about, is the income. See, I think we're taught to put the cart before the horse when it comes to personal finance, where we're taught, go to school, college is ridiculously expensive. You rack up tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. Go get the job, max out your 401k, and then you'll be good at 65. You'll be a millionaire at 65. My question is, why not be a millionaire now, as soon as possible? Why not work towards that? Why rely on a financial product to make you a millionaire when you can focus on providing value to increase your income first, right? And then make all the money you want, okay? So for me, when I see the average person putting in, and this is very common, this is very typical, most people are not maxing out the 401k. If you max out there's nothing necessarily wrong with the 401k. If you're able to max it out and you have good income, it can make sense, okay? But what I see very often is people are not maxing it out. They're only putting a few $100s a month into it. And the problem with that is it's not going to move the needle. Okay, I just saw an article.
If you're making 65 grand a year when you're like 35 and you're putting 10% of your 401k, it's not going to move the needle for you.
Not enough.
You're
not going to get.
I got you, bro.
You're probably not going to get anywhere close to that $1 million mark. Okay. So putting a few $100 a month into the 401k, it's not going to do enough. And so for me, that's putting the cart before the horse. Right. I think that those few $100s per month would be much better invested back into yourself to double your income. Okay. And then when you double your income, now you can max out the 401k. Now we're starting to make some progress here. Okay. Because I just saw an article on this. Like mainstream media really tries to hype this stuff up. It said that there's a record number of 401k millionaires in 2024. Now, granted, it was only 422,000 people out of 45 million accounts managed by Fidelity. So a little bit of a side note there. It's not a lot of people that reach that $1 million mark. That's number one. But number two, the primary factor of them getting to that $1 million mark was contributions. It wasn't necessarily the market. Now, the market can do good, not knocking the stock market, even though I'm not a fan. Okay. But it was the amount they were able to contribute that got them there. So if you're not able to contribute enough because you don't have your income fixed, you don't have enough cash flow. Well, now you're putting a lot of faith into a financial product that is probably not going to get you to where you want, for your retirement. Okay.
Got it. So when you're talking about cash, right? Because I think you can get confused on like when people use cash flow in rental property investing and investments, it comes with weighted connotations. You're essentially saying increase your income first, so that you can contribute to things and make a meaningful contribution to them. Correct. Right. So like when you're saying,
so you can make better, smarter investments.
People
are investing too soon.
Yeah. And like to what you're saying of just like $200 a month here or there isn't going to do as much for you in a 401k as much as it is learning a new skill set, having a membership into a group of people that are at a level of a certain ilk that you now get exposure to mentorship, right? Like all these things that, before maybe $200 a month didn't pay for. $200 a month won't afford UCF, right? But like that wasn't an option before. Like it used to only be college, right? Like now you can spend $200 a month leveling up your skill set, learning AI, buying online courses, buying into these like masterminds and things like that, that then allow you to become the person that you need to be to increase your revenue either by job title or through entrepreneurship.
Exactly. You said it perfectly.
Got it.
So yeah. And here's the thing, you don't even really have to spend money. YouTube is the biggest free university on the planet now. You can learn anything that you want. But if we're talking about the $200, $300, $400 per month, like I just bought an AI course for $200.
Yeah.
Like
that'll change.
Imagine like if you think about the profound impact that AI is having on the world and is going to have. If you start to learn how to implement AI in a way that serves a specific niche, you can't sit here and tell me you're not going to massively increase your income.
I say it all the time. The biggest creations of wealth happen during giant context shifts. This giant context shift of AI, right? Like whatever niche you want to be in, be the expert of AI for that, and I guarantee you your income changes.
100%. You know how I know that is true for a fact is because my agency I started doing Facebook ads for business owners, still do it today. We have a great system for it. But when I started doing it, that's when Facebook ads were like getting popular, right? So it was this huge shift in marketing for businesses. And I was in the right place at the right time. We're literally repeating the same exact cycle with AI.
Good pattern recognition.
Massive opportunity. Now, here's the thing. I want to stress this too, because a lot of people watching might, have jobs. Some people are entrepreneurs. I get this question a lot. Like if I have a job, how do I increase my income? Like, cause when you have a job, you're thinking like you have to go to your boss to get a raise. Okay.
Yes.
Maybe that's part of the process, but here's the thing is the more valuable you become, the more money you're going to make. Period. Because if you are contributing, like if you become an indispensable asset to your job, they're either going to give you the raise and move you up, or you're going to start getting courted by other companies like, hey, I see what you're doing here. I'll double your salary or I'll increase your salary over here. Now, again, you're starting to increase your income. So you could learn new skill sets. You could just get better at what you currently do. Increase your numbers that way, right? But again, I guess we have to say this is not financial advice, but the couple $100, a few $100 a month you're putting in the 401k, why not put that back into yourself so that you can go from $50,000 a year to $100,000 a year, maybe $200,000 a year. That was the big light bulb moment for me when I was reflecting on this stuff, man, was I was putting too much faith into the system, these financial products, not focused on increasing my income by providing value. And when my agency took off in 2022, 2023, that's when I had that light bulb moment, dude.
Love it. So step one in the Millennial Wealth Creator Blueprint is invest in yourself If you don't have enough income to be making meaningful investments, then the number one investment is to invest in yourself, to level up your skill set, so you level up your opportunities, so that you level up your revenue, so that you can start playing with a big boy table.
100%.
All right, cool.
A phrase to put all of that into context and easy to remember: you are your greatest asset.
Boy.
It's not a piece of real estate. It's not the stock market. It's not your 401k. It's none of these financial products. You are your greatest asset, 100%. And when you start to take that seriously, your life can change. All right. So
I'm in. What's step two?
Income it is. All right. So you got increase income first. Step number two, now that we're making this money, what do we do with it? Right. So we're building our vault. That's what I call it. Step number two, building your vault. So again, just sharing my journey here. When I reflect back on when I started making money, I was like, holy crap, I'm not used to this, right? I'm used to being broke most of my life, right? And I was like coming out of this, like just the bottom of the financial barrel there. And so I still struggle with this a little bit, but I had this fear of going back to where I was. So Pablo, I literally just saved everything. As I started making more money, my expenses did not increase. A little bit. But I wasn't buying new cars. I wasn't living in high-rise condos or anything like that, dude. I was stacking cash. Building my vault. And eventually it got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm making, income is good. I've got that solved. I've got a little bit of a stash here. What do I do with it? Right? Now we can start to put this into play. Now, one other part of the vault though, this was huge for me, is where are you saving the money? Right? Because one of the things we have to worry about, it's a huge problem these days, inflation. So if you have money sitting in a checking account, savings account, you have to ask yourself, what is that doing for you? Number one. And then this question was presented to me by a mentor of mine as I started to go down this rabbit hole of like, okay, what do I do with this? And, I started buying treasury bills because interest rates were high, like 5%, high yield savings accounts and things like that. Okay. But I started thinking more long-term, like how do I build long-term wealth here? And the question that was proposed to me was, if you're going to save money, why not save it in the most efficient way possible? Okay. That question really changed the trajectory for my wealth building journey. And a big part of Millennial Wealth Creator, that's when I discovered the infinite banking concept. Okay. And it blew my mind.
I've always been really curious about the infinite banking concept. Man. And explain it to me.
Okay, so the simplest way I can explain it is an analogy, right? Because it's a long rabbit hole that we could go down. But here's the question.
That could be a whole episode.
It absolutely could. You can just see the channel, how much content I have on that.
we'll have to figure that out.
So here's how I describe it to people. It's with a question. If your bank called you up and said, hey, Pablo, we have this brand new savings account. We're going to pay you 4% uninterrupted compound interest for the rest of your life. Okay. On top of that,
better than what I'm getting in my savings account right now.
Right. Pretty good savings, high yield savings account.
Decent.
Right? Okay. On top of that, we're going to let you use the money in the account to build wealth like you normally would without interrupting the compound growth. And on top of that, if you were to pass away, it's going to blossom into a massive income tax-free death benefit paid out to your loved ones. Does that sound like a good savings account that you'd be interested in?
From first principles, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if you say yes to that question, infinite banking is absolutely something to at least research. Now, it's definitely not for everybody. I'm not one of these guys that said everybody needs to do infinite banking. Absolutely not. And we can get into who it's right for, who it's not. But the point is, we use custom designed dividend paying whole life insurance policies. They're very efficient savings vehicles. Now, I know I'm going to lose some people now because when you hear whole life insurance,
immediately.
But see, again, this is my pushback against the system, Pablo. We've been taught by so many people for so long, whole life insurance is bad, terrible investment. It's not even an investment. It's a very efficient savings vehicle, right? I say it's comparing apples and tater tots when people compare the returns in the stock market to whole life insurance. Dave Ramsey talks about that all the time. He hates whole life. Okay. But did you know you can custom design it? Did you know that it's a very efficient savings vehicle that allows you to build wealth without having your money in a useless freaking checking or savings account, right?
It sounds almost like the amount of misconceptions around rental property investing, right? Or even real estate, right? There's all these reasons. There's many ways to do it wrong. Right. And there's many kind of like horror stories of people that came into it not with the right strategy for it, that it didn't work out for them. But then there is many stories of people succeeding with it.
Sure.
What I'm taking away from infinite banking, because I also come with these like preconceived notions of just like my Northwest Mutual guy wasn't really like in it for me.
Right.
What I'm hearing from you is there is definitely wrong ways to do it, and then there's right ways to do it, which is sounds like from the outside is not just count on doing it as the thing, but it's like doing it as a thing within a greater strategy.
Absolutely.
That allows you to go.
That's a very good point. So infinite banking works for people, going back to the phrase that I brought up earlier, who know they are their greatest assets.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, we're not relying on a financial product or strategy. You are the strategy. You are the person that makes something like infinite banking actually work. Okay. And again, just sharing my journey. Yeah. So
Leslie Wilson, the maven from the mountains of Denver, says another term for this is called bank on yourself. I've been doing this for 30 years. It is where I got the down payments for my properties. No tax consequence of withdrawal or loan money from your cash value life insurance policy, unlike selling a stock.
I love it.
All right. Leslie. Your people. All right. Your people.
It's people in my corner. I love it.
Yeah.
It is absolutely one of the most powerful financial strategies I've ever seen for the right person. But as I started to learn it was an absolute no-brainer because it answered the question, if I'm going to save money, why not save it in the most efficient way possible? So the great thing about these policies is they solve so many problems with one policy.
Got it.
Right? Like the analogy I just gave you about we don't set these policies up for the internal rate of return. I like to think of that as just a bonus. Again, if you get excited about high yield savings accounts and you've been investing in treasury bills because interest rates are high, you probably would actually like whole life because it's custom designed they typically net 3 to 5% tax-free compound growth for the life of the policy. That's a good savings vehicle. Yeah. Okay. But
and real quick, you don't sell these policies. This is just a vehicle that you have used because you are 36 and this is like you're telling your life story, right?
I am. I can sell the policies.
Oh, okay. So you do.
Yeah, I absolutely want to help people set these up because I know how much of a game changer they've been in my life.
So give us a couple questions. You keep talking about like it needs to be custom designed. What are a couple of questions that somebody would want to ask to make sure that they're getting the right like custom design kind of thing?
That's a good question. So the first thing is how much cash value do you have access to in the first year?
Okay.
That's a big one.
Okay.
Right. If you have zero cash value in the first couple of years, your agent's probably not setting it up right. He's probably setting it up for his commission, right? See, when people bring up the commission thing, when I set policies up, I drive my commission into the ground because we're lowering the death benefit and we're increasing the amount of cash value that you have access to in the first year.
Okay. So maximize cash value at the end of the first year instead of over benefit.
That's huge. It should net 3 to 5%, right? Again, high yield savings type of internal rate of return. All right. But the big thing is the cash value. How much cash value are you getting in the first year? That's the big thing.
Cool.
When you're talking about, if we're talking about implementing infinite banking, because you have to have access to cash value in order to actually implement this strategy.
Got it.
I'll give you a perfect example. So when I started learning about this, again, still on step 2 here, building the vault. All right. So I had this money sitting here, not really doing much. So I moved the money into my policies and immediately had access to about 85, it was like 90% of that money within the first 30 days. I took my first policy loan within the first 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm really all I'm doing is I'm shifting money from a useless savings account that's not really doing anything for me into this policy that provides a multitude of different benefits.
Interesting.
Right?
Cool.
And so what we're able to do at that point is now I can borrow against the cash value to build wealth like I normally would.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. So step 1,
that's the
invest in yourself. Increase your revenue, right? Like increase your skill set. Step 2, bank on yourself. Invest in yourself, then bank on yourself. Right? Find the most efficient way to like do this right now. Your idea of like this like infinite returns, whole life insurance structured in a way that maximizes cash value year 1 versus death benefit in order to like continue this flywheel going. Step 3.
Okay. Well, real quick before we get just clarification on a couple things. No such thing as infinite returns. Don't want people to get confused. Like this is like a magical, fix all the problem. They're going to make all this money. Whole life is not going to make you rich. Even though what I do stress to people, if you start this early enough, compound interest is an amazing thing. For sure. I know 4% is not a sexy rate of return. Yeah. Okay. But you let that compound uninterrupted, tax-free for 40 years, 50 years. It could turn into a pretty decent amount of money. Sure. And the beautiful thing about infinite banking is that we're able to use the money without interrupting that compound growth.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm almost making money twice as I get to step 3 here.
Yeah. It's one of the things we love about real estate, like cash out refinancing and stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Got it.
So step 2, we're building the vault. All right. Saving up the money, putting it into a very efficient savings vehicle. That's step 2. Step 3 is, okay, now we have our vault, right? Maybe I have this policy, you know, it absolutely was a no-brainer to me. Okay. How do I actually start building wealth here? How do I deploy this capital here?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one other thing I want to say is I never tell people like move all their money into a policy. That's stupid. I still have money in the bank. Yep. I moved my emergency and opportunity money into these policies, the money that I'm going to be utilizing to build wealth. Okay. So that's when I started going down the rabbit hole of different ways to invest in real estate. Because again, I'm not a stock market guy. I don't like these tax qualified plans and stuff. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's really interesting when I ask people, do you think taxes are going up in the future? Most people say yes. But they're putting all their money into these tax qualified plans to get the tax deduction now. But you just said you think taxes are going up in the future, so you're going to end up paying more taxes on a higher amount later on down the road. Yep. So I'm not a big fan of those types of things. I really like real estate. So for me right now, what made sense, I wanted something passive because I'm more focused on building my YouTube channels, creating content.
Your active income.
Correct. I don't want to be an active investor right now. I don't want to be doing the fix and flips. Not at the moment, maybe later on. That's when I discovered private lending. That was my first deal in real estate. And again, it was one of those things that was just such a no-brainer to me because we take the bank on yourself, infinite banking concept here, and we combine it with private money lending. I am literally acting like the bank now. Because what does the bank do, Pablo? When you deposit money into a savings account, let's say they're a little bit higher now, but historically speaking, they don't pay much, 1%. Let's use that as an example. Yeah. What do they do with the money? Do they just let it sit there? No, they lend it out at 4, 5, 6%. Yeah. They're making hundreds of percent rates of return on that. They pay you 1%, they lend it out at 5. Well, what I'm doing with my policy now, with the infinite banking concept, is I'm borrowing against my policy at 5.5%. I'm now lending it out on a piece of real estate at 12% plus points. Yep. And now I'm creating positive arbitrage in the wealth building process. Yeah. All the while, my money in the policy is still getting that uninterrupted compound growth. You know why? Because I borrowed the life insurance company's money to do it. Just like the bank uses our money and pays us an interest rate on it, and then lends it out at a higher rate, I'm doing the same exact thing here. I'm borrowing at 5.5%, lending it out at 12%. And I love private money lending because it's backed by a hard asset. You do it, again, you alluded to this earlier, like there's right ways to do things, wrong ways to do things. When you hear private money lending, oh, that sounds risky, right? Yeah. You're going to give your money to a complete stranger halfway across the country. What the hell's the matter with you? Yeah. Right? It sounds cuckoo. Yeah. But when you do it right, it's actually far less risky than what we're taught and told of what you might think it is, or how risky it is in the beginning. It's not when you know what to do. And I love that it's backed by the hard asset. And I'm sorry, if I'm able to get 12% plus points on my money, why on earth would I stuff money into a 401k and hope that the stock market's going to perform over the next 30 years? Yeah. For me, it's a strategy that gives so much more control back to us in our own personal lives to build our wealth versus relying on Wall Street.
You said doing it the right way, like just like in like a minute or two. Is there kind of like right, wrong way kind of guidance that you can give that to?
Yeah, sure. I'm definitely not an expert yet. This is my first private money loan deal that I've done, but I took 6 months before I ever did my first deal, just learning, educating myself on how to do it right. The couple of big things that I learned from my mentor was the loan to value. She recommended 65%. I did 70. I'm okay with 70% loan to value. You don't want to loan much more than that because you start to really increase your risk if the deal goes south. Yep. All right. You want first lien position. You could maybe eventually do second lien positions as you get more experience, you work with more investors and stuff. Yeah. But generally when you're getting started, you want first lien position just like the bank does so that if the deal does go south, you can take possession of that property and make all of your money back. All right. It's a great way to protect yourself. Insurance being, title insurance, home insurance, making sure you're on that. And then working with the right investor. Yeah. All right. That was
team that's done it many
absolutely
times with a track record.
I sleep very good at night with my money deployed with the investor that I have. And he was introduced to me by another mentor of mine who's done $1 million of deals with him. Yeah. This guy has been an investor for a long time. He's done tens of millions of dollars in real estate. Yep. I was like, dude, take my money. How much can I give you?
Right? Yeah, sure.
And 12% plus points with an experienced investor, never lost money for any of his private money lenders. Yep. Things like that significantly reduce your risk. At the end of the day, it's really educating yourself. That's what reduces your risk. But those are some of the main things when it comes to private lending.
I like it. So then we are, we call that around here, what you're describing, this idea of taking money that's performing at a certain level, taking a loan at a certain rate, and then putting that into an investment that performs at a rate much higher than that is risk adjusted. We call that financial engineering around that, right? So like I'm hearing from you, essentially, it's like step one of the millennial wealth creation blueprint is this idea of invest in yourself to increase your active income. Step two is build the vault, find the most efficient strategies that you can that allow you for growth and leverage, which you're using this universal life insurance stuff, right? Like
stay away from universal life.
Okay, so whole life insurance. Life insurance products, maximizing cash value versus death benefit. And then once you're got there, you are taking loans against that to create the financial engineering standpoint of doing private money lending, in which you are lending on hard assets with experienced investors with a great track record, taking first lien positions, and no more than a 65 to 70% loan to value ratio.
Correct.
I got it so far.
That's it.
Give me step 4, big man.
All right. So step 4 is going to be more the legacy building. I'm still working on that. I wouldn't call it a major part of my blueprint just yet because it's something I'm still working on. And I don't like to share anything that I'm not, unless I'm interviewing an expert on it on my channel or whatever. I don't have too much to share on it just yet, other than, the plan is to have a web of trusts as well, avoiding probate and all that stuff, passing on generational wealth. I do have part of that. Like you naturally have part of the legacy aspect of the blueprint figured out when you start implementing something like infinite banking, because these whole life policies, by the time I'm 80, 90 years old, we're talking about a lot of death benefit that gets passed on to my loved ones as a legacy play. Income tax free, it avoids probate. It's a huge legacy play. Right. So there's going to be a lot more to part 4 as I start to put that into.
Still being written.
It is.
I like it.
I'm still focused on steps 1, 2, and 3 right now. And I'm basically, when you're implementing step 3, you're going to rinse and repeat. Like always increasing your income, always stacking your vault, and then putting the money in the vault to work. Whatever that is for you. Maybe it's private money lending. Maybe it's fix and flip. Maybe it's the stock market. Whatever your thing is. Right. But for me, doing it in that order is the most important part, and is what is going to set people up for far more success than what we're taught by mainstream media.
That is how you build wealth outside the system. I like it. I like it a lot, man. I like that you have a vision for the legacy piece of it. I also happen to know that you are kind of like in finalized steps of acquiring a JWB property, becoming official part of the JWB family. You didn't mention passive income rental properties in there. So how do you see this? How do you see this I assume you're going to build a real estate portfolio of rental properties. How do you see that fitting into this whole blueprint?
So for me, everybody's going to be a little bit different, but for me personally, I'm going to continue using my policies for the private money lending. That just makes sense to me. And then again, as I increasing my income, I'm stacking my vault. What's another way? What's another area that I can put that money to use? Start to diversify a little bit. Now I have more passive income streams coming in. I'm working with Frank right now. We're looking at inventory just to figure out which one is going to be.
So you're on the third call then.
I'm on the third. We just got done with the third call.
Let's go. That's cool.
So I've got a big plan for that as well. A whole new aspect of what I'm going to be talking about on my channel is the concept of velocity banking. And what that comes down to is using a line of credit to accelerate the mortgage payoff process. So again, Pablo, pushing back against the system. What are we taught to do to pay off the mortgage faster? Make extra payments, or maybe get a 15-year mortgage. Not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but my question comes back to, if there's a much better and efficient way to do that, would you want to know about it? Hopefully the answer is yes. Well, you can actually use a HELOC or a personal line of credit to significantly accelerate the mortgage payoff process if you do it right. If you educate yourself, or you do it right. So my plan, I have other capital outside of my policies, again, because I focused on increasing my income, that I'm going to take. It's sitting in treasury bills right now. It's doing like 5%, whatever. I'm now moving that into, that's all going to be used for the JWB property. All right. And then the plan is, as soon as I'm able to, get the equity line of credit on it, and start to implement the velocity banking system. I'm going to pay that sucker off as fast as possible, use that to acquire more JWB properties.
Yeah.
And it's a snowball effect at that point. So I guess to bring this full circle, the idea is when you educate yourself about different ways of doing things outside of the system, you start to realize, holy crap, there's a much better way to do this than what I've been taught. And the light bulb moments start to go off, right? And it's not going to make sense for everybody, but for people who think they are their greatest asset, who want to build wealth in the most efficient way possible, man, you start learning this stuff. It's like, I want nothing to do with what the system is trying to shove down my throat, man. I'm not interested at all.
Yeah, that is something that I've learned over the last 4 years hosting this show. It's been impossible to deny, right? Like this thing. Let me ask something else though. I'm also a particularly lazy person, right? Like I'm a big vision storyteller.
Are you calling me lazy?
No. I'm a lazy person. I see you as like a tinkerer. I see you as a guy like, when you read The Tipping Point, you hear about like the maven and the connector, right? Like I'm the connector, which likes to like go out there and tell the world. And then there's people like Leslie Wilson and you who educate yourself on everything, like to tinker with things, like to do that type of stuff. And I see you as a guy that could, you've built a network, you have all this knowledge, you could be investing in real estate in any fashion possible, but yet you are picking to build this like army of income properties through JWB passively in this way that some people look at it and think, well, if I'm an expert, I can make a little bit more margin or do it more myself.
Sure.
Why are you picking it to do it with JWB now that you're moving into this part of the portfolio?
Fantastic question. Glad you brought it up. So number one, I love JWB. Like mentioned, we kind of alluded to it earlier. I was one of the original interns, and I've just always loved this company. It's just a fantastic group of people that work here. Yeah. I love the business model as well. I always have this concept of buying turnkey rental real estate that
me too.
I don't have to negotiate. I don't have to find the property. I don't have to negotiate with the seller. I don't have to fix it. I don't have to do any of that.
No.
I'm literally buying cash flow. Yeah. Okay. So if we're following this millennial wealth creator blueprint, unless your goal is to be a full-time real estate investor, then something like JWB, turnkey properties, is a complete no-brainer because I want to still focus on creating content, growing the YouTube channel, sharing my journey, building my marketing agency. I don't want to be doing fix and flips and stuff. So could I make more money if I did my own deals as opposed to lending it on the deal that I did? I mean, my investor is going to make way more money than I did.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do anything. I literally just put the capital to work. I lent it to him. Yeah. So we could argue that that's a very passive way of investing in real estate as well. And what that allows me to do is continue to focus on my business. So for me, turnkey real estate with JWB is just a no-brainer. They have the track record. You guys have been around a long time. I know the team very well. You guys have just like your growth, you just exploded, man. You guys have the system. You have it figured out. Yeah. To me, if you're looking to build a portfolio, if you're a business owner or somebody who's busy that doesn't have the time to be a full-time investor, why not do this? You guys also have the fund as well. Yeah. There's a couple of different ways that people can get involved with JWB. But yeah, to me, it's just a no-brainer. I'm building my real estate portfolio while I'm still able to focus on my business. Yeah. That's going to increase income, allow me to build my portfolio even more. It's that snowball effect, man. So I'm just going to repeat that process over and over and over again.
You said a couple of things that I feel like everybody says, and you said a couple of things that I feel like not a lot of people say, but I completely echo with, right? The things that I think are apparent to everybody is track record and completely passive experience so that I can not be a real estate investor and still be a real estate investor. Right. Like that's real. 17 years, multiple, like more than one downturn in the real estate market in the game, right?
Yeah, like I think you guys got started during the downturn in
2006. Yeah. Like I look at some of like the real estate content creators these days, and I'm like, dude, you with your pink hair, you were not buying houses in 2006. You know what I'm saying? Like, like don't bring me into your syndication when like you've been doing this for like 5 years, and like I can get into
just because they're on YouTube doesn't mean they're an expert.
Yeah, 100%. And then, but the other thing that I think it's often undervalued, and it's one of the big reasons why we started the show, is you've been inside the machine. This was like you were here 14 years ago when it was just like an apple in Alex and Greg's eye and Adam's eye. and they're like building this thing, and you already knew that they were building it the right way.
Yep.
And you come back here 14 years later, and the track record and all this stuff makes a ton of sense because you've seen inside the machine. For me, it was like the first time I stepped into a Tuesday morning meeting, I'm like, this place is magical. I want to invest with these people or 100%. Work with them or both. Right. So, and then the other part of it is, man, the business model, dude. Like I'm now very well seeped in the world of real estate investing. I am helping these like technology companies that sell into the property management world. And I just got back from one of the biggest property management conferences in the world.
Nice.
Wait, so do you guys ever like sell to investors and do this thing turnkey? Because don't you realize that like you can be acquiring this stuff and your inventory makes money for you, that you can then be like selling it to an investor and then managing it for the lifetime value and liquidating it on the front end. You know, like the business model of like this flywheel akin to like an Amazon where like every piece of the business makes money for itself, which de-risks it for me because I know that they're going to be financially well off, is like, it's like reading a Jim Collins book. It's reading Good to Great and watching it play out in real life, which I absolutely love, man. Yeah. But I see that in your system, right? Like I see like every piece of your system feeds itself. I talk about flywheels all the time because it is a core concept of, I think, building a great business. And I love the way that you have found a way to create a flywheel for yourself where you still win in every part of the flywheel and you still get to continue every part of the flywheel.
100%.
You've upskilled yourself. You continue to upskill yourself, right? Like you've gone from marketing expert to AI expert to you're becoming a dangerous financial expert as well, right? Like and by dangerous, I mean like well versed, right? Sure. Like to then figuring out the most highly leveraged way that you can do banking, to then figure out the most highly leveraged way that you can increase the value of the vault that you have built, to then, continue to like get leverage and leverage and leverage. Like you've become 100%. A financial engineer to the max.
100%, dude. And again, I keep going back to pushing back against the system because we're taught to do the opposite. We're taught to segregate everything, right? We have our checking account, we have our 401k, we have our mortgage, we have our student loan debt, blah, 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 right? So we have all these different things going on. We're not taught to create that flywheel system that feeds itself. Yes. And I'm telling you, when you create that, it's life-changing. And I got my first experience with it in my marketing agency when, as I was building my channel, I started to create referral partners, like partnerships and stuff like that. And what I realized was that my YouTube channel feeds my marketing agency. I get the leads. I get leads from it every single day. Yeah. All right. They turn into clients, but now those clients I can refer to my partners, which generates additional revenue there. And I can recommend this. I can recommend that. I can recommend other products that I sell, whatever. Yeah. So without really knowing it, I started to create this flywheel system in my marketing agency that this part feeds this part feeds that part. And boom, it just took off.
To me, that is at the core. What you just said, without saying it, is at the core of everything I believe in, which is relationships over transactions. If you can create, transactionals have diminishing returns. Transactions have diminishing returns. Relationships have compounding returns.
100%.
If you can create great relationships with whether it's your client or whether it is the different facets of your business having relationships with each other, or the different facets of your wealth creation plan, right? Like the more that you start to build the relationship between people, processes, and strategy, and it all starts to feed, that's when you reach this like flywheel level, man.
More, man. But some of my biggest deals have come from those relationships within that flywheel system.
Exactly that. And that's another thing that to me was very obvious the moment I stepped into JWB, and I've continued to live it, right? Like the way that they value relationships, the way that they'll go above and beyond to like make things right if there is an issue, throughout this. And I think you get stories about that as in the community all day long, right? Like it's 100%. The way that I met Lee Bishop, right? Like crying over like them going above and beyond when something hard happened to him, and then giving me a big bear hug, which when you meet him, you'll get a big bear hug from him.
Can't wait.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Matt, let's answer. We got 3 questions in the Q&A.
Cool.
Lee Bishop, MVP of the community, may have heard of him. Right. He says, I have family members who like to have a mortgage on their primary residence in retirement. I am not sure how to talk them into paying off the loan. Is there advice you can share about this subject? By the way, welcome to the show.
I appreciate the welcome. Yeah. Warm welcome. So first off, I would say I would dig deeper into why they want to have the mortgage. Oftentimes, I think maybe it's like the mortgage interest deduction, I guess. But that's never really made any sense to me either, though, because you're paying $10 to save $1.
Yeah.
Right. When we're talking about like how much interest you pay on the mortgage and then you get the deduction. So maybe that's why. At the end of the day, I don't try to, I really don't try to convince anybody of anything. I share what I understand about these types of things.
Yeah.
Like, hey, mom and dad, notice that, you still have the mortgage here. Is there a particular reason you want to have the mortgage? Or if there was a way that if I could show you how to pay off that mortgage very quickly without making extra payments, is that something that you'd like to do, so that you're debt free, that puts a bunch of money back into your pocket, right? Something like that, not trying to shove anything down their throat or anything like that, but I would dive into why they still want to pay the mortgage.
I like that. That's another kind of like core value of mine too: relationships over transactions and approach with curiosity over judgment.
Correct.
Right. Like ask great questions, get to the bottom of it.
Great question. You're not going to get anywhere with anybody if you're judging.
Yeah. Anonymous attendee says, "What can I do?" I think this was talking about when you were talking about increasing your revenue, your active revenue. And anonymous attendee is asking, "What can I do to withdraw my money from a traditional method and financial advisor for this type of investment? I want cash flow now, not 20 years later."
Okay, so I got to be careful with that.
Kind of a loaded, financial advisor. Yeah, it's a loaded question.
I can't. I'm not giving specific financial advice. You would definitely want to consider the tax consequences of doing something like that if it's locked up in a tax qualified plan. Sometimes it makes sense to take the hit and move it into something that's going to give you more control of your capital so that you could put that to good use and start to set up a strong financial foundation. But you would definitely want to work with a financial advisor or at least a CPA to see what that hit would be. And then also I would, before you do that, come up with the plan about, okay, so if you were to do that, what are you going to do afterwards? Okay. Again, we don't want to be relying, just because I said infinite banking and whole life insurance, that doesn't mean we need to dump money into the whole life policy and that's going to solve my problems, right? It's a very specific strategy that involves you actually implementing wealth building concepts, utilizing the policy. So I would make sure I would start with a plan on how are you going to increase your cash flow? The other thing I would say too, just real quick, you want cash flow now. Again, I would go back to step one. Is there something you can do with what you're currently doing to increase your income? Can you get better at what you're currently doing? Can you learn a new skill set? And also start sharing your journey? I tell this to everybody. Start some type of content channel. Share your journey.
Yes.
This would be a perfect example of sharing content where, hey, I was in this position of I had my money locked up in a traditional investment. I didn't know what to do. Here's what I did. Here's what I'm doing now. Dude, that kind of message spreads like wildfire.
Agreed. One other thing, I could not agree more. You and me have broed out about this already, but like starting a content channel, having a stage to offer others will forever like change the way your access to people and your access to information and like, the way that people see you. So totally agree with that. One other thing I would say to Anonymous is your financial advisor works for you. So you're allowed to ask questions, right? And what I find is, because I've taken some unpopular decisions based on my financial advisor's advice, I think it's also interesting to ask, how are you incentivized, right? Like that will, by understanding the incentives of the equation for all people involved, that'll help you make better decisions on whether or not you want to go with the advice or not.
Right. That's a very good point. Because a lot of the times the incentives are out of alignment.
100%.
So if you're not getting the answers that you want, I would do your own research first, go into it prepared, ask questions, see how they respond to those questions. And you should be able to tell pretty quick whether or not they have your best interests in mind.
Because money outside the system, often if you're working with a financial advisor that operates under assets under management, under management's always in the system. Right. So like it is, I'm not saying that they're acting against you or not, but incentives really, really matter. As an economics major, I can tell you that right now. Mystery Man Denny Davis says, Matt, thanks so much for being here today and welcome home to JWP. Love that.
Thank you.
Is the whole life product to which you are referring an equity index universal life insurance product with a high cash value?
Oh, great question, Denny. I got to be careful here because I can really go off on a tangent about indexed universal life. I'm going to tell you, this is actually one of the primary reasons I started Millennial Wealth Creator, because when I started going down the rabbit hole in step 2, started learning about infinite banking, I came this close to buying an indexed universal life policy. All right. Because it's talked about and presented as this amazing financial product. You get upside potential in the market, downside protection, all this tax-free retirement income. Not so much. When you look below the surface and actually understand how those products work, For me, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. And I thank my lucky stars every single day that I did not buy an IUL. If you go to my channel, you're going to see a ton of content all about the risks involved with index universal life insurance. Not saying that it can't work for some people, but it is sold as something that it is not. All right. So be very careful with index universal life. But to answer your question, we are absolutely talking about a custom designed dividend paying whole life insurance policy. If you read Becoming Your Own Bank by Nelson Nash, who created the infinite banking concept, he specifically, like, you can't use, you can, but you don't want to be using IUL with infinite banking. It's just not what it was ever meant to do. You want to be using whole life, because if you're using IUL, you're injecting so much more risk into the wealth building process, when we want to be reducing that risk by using whole life. So it's always whole life. It's never, ever, ever indexed universal life.
Thanks, Matt. I will check out your channel. Much appreciated. That's Millennial Wealth Creator, Denny Davis. If you get Denny Davis on your side, Denny Davies on your side. Denny's the man. I'll tell you more about. We call him the mystery man because we can't really talk about everything. We can't. First rule about Denny Davies is not to talk about Denny Davies. Okay. But I'll tell you offline how much the man he is.
Okay. Well, also real quick, Denny, if that is something that you're considering and you want to have a conversation about it, first check out the channel. But I always have links to my calendar. We can have a conversation and go into more detail about what you need to be careful with IUL. So just throwing that out there.
Love it, man. By the way, that was one of the questions I was going to ask, is how to get in contact with you. Go to the Millennial Wealth Creator YouTube channel. You're going to see his face on it. It's undeniable. There's links to his calendar right there. I'm going to set up some time with you, man, because I'm really interested in this concept right now, especially in the stage of life that I'm in. Buddy, I want to thank you for being here, man.
Man, I want to thank you for the opportunity.
This is awesome.
Again, I got chills a little bit coming over here, walking into the building the first time, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, this is just so awesome. I love you guys. Great company. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man. You totally over-delivered for me. Like, I feel like we are kindred spirits on many, many different levels. I think we're going to do a bunch of cool stuff together here, TBD, but like, I think it's going to be a growing, compounding relationship investment here. I want to thank the community for being here, always asking great questions, always contributing to here. Never goes unnoticed that you take an hour in the middle of a workday to hang out with us here and be welcoming to others, be brave and like ask questions and check in on the roll call. So really appreciate you. Next Tuesday, we and our community's grown a lot over the last couple of years, and what we realize is that we got a lot of questions over and over again. We're going to have a most asked question shows about how to get started in real estate investing, what this whole thing is about. I can't wait for the OGs of the community to be here to answer it your own way in the chat. But if you're new here and you're just kind of like, man, I feel like I got here and everyone's at 60 miles an hour. I'm here in the school zone and I want to go like 15 and catch up. It's going to be the perfect way to catch up. So join us next Tuesday for that show. From now till then, Matt, you got any advice for people of what to do from here till then?
I'll say how I kind of end most of my podcasts. Always do your own research, guys. Question everything. All right. You start questioning things. That's when you start going down the rabbit hole, finding things that work way better in your life. And I'm talking about every aspect of your life, not just building wealth. I'm talking about health, relationships, building wealth in general. When you start to question the things that society has pushed on us, man, your life can change for the better. So always do your own research, guys.
Product of his own research. I asked this guy if he wanted to grab lunch before the show. He's like, I don't eat till 1 because my body chemistry, blah, 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 intermittent fasting. I got one piece of advice for you from now till then. Don't be average.